So the Arrowhead collection. I grew up walking in the arrow fields, and it was because my mom and her 4 sisters were all Indian arrowhead collectors. Who knows why? I don't know why. And I see that we have some arrowheads here from the Verona area, brought to us by Dan, Jenny, and Doris Jenny. This is their collection over there, which is spectacular and good for you. My mom died a year ago yesterday, and her collection is 2,000 perfect arrowheads. Last night I was out at the farm and looking for some pieces to bring to you, and she has at least 3 of the oval copper wash tubs full of pieces. I mean, just deep full of pieces. And the rest if we got to the point when we were hunters to just drop them in the field rather than bring them home, the pieces and the chips and that sort of thing. You can only collect so many. She's got 23 of these print typeset drawers full. She glued them in because it got to be show and steal rather than show and tell. She used to take hers around to schools, and she'd come home with empty slots, and she decided she was done doing that. So these are pretty much nailed down. These are some examples from my personal collection. I found all of these except for this guy. And I don't have mine glued down, they're just sitting here. So you're free to touch them, but if you drop one and break one, you will break my heart. Because these aren't, you can't go to Kmart and get a new one. And once you put glue on them, they're not quite the same. So if you do that, please do it very carefully. And then over here, I've got some in frames that you can look at too, and I'll talk about those later. But an arrowhead, first of all, it's a tool. And I've had friends who just kind of doubt that they're real. Somebody told me he thought they were petrified leaves. So there's a lot of opinion about what an arrowhead is. But basically, it's a tool. Backing up far enough? Can you all see that? Okay. And when you talk about an arrowhead, you're talking about the tip, the blade, the edge of the blade, the shoulder, the tang, and the base. And as you look at an arrowhead, you will notice that all of those things are sort of interchangeable. You may have a straight base with a barbed shoulder. And this is where arrowheads get to be interesting. Besides just being a tool that you find, after a while you start paying attention to, well, that's kind of an odd-shaped base. And then you think, how common is that or uncommon? And over the years you start paying attention and reading and doing some research, and you find out which ones are rare, and some of them depict the age of the piece, or the purpose, or even the location. Sometimes right down to the tribes where they were made. So my arrowheads mostly, I say mostly, came from the Wisconsin River area, Bear Valley, Lone Rock, Spring Green Arena, Baraboo, Sauk City. And then when we started moving around, vacationing and so on, we would hunt in other places. So there's a few here from Illinois. Not too many of mine came from Illinois. Because there were 4 kids and Mom and Dad, when we'd come home from an arrow trip, we would get out our little magic markers and put either our name or initial on them. So on a lot of mine, you're going to see Lily, that was my mom, who found most of them, and our own initials, until we left home, took our collection with us, and then we stopped writing our name on our own pieces because they were out. That would explain, somebody asked me earlier about the names and the year, and to this day, I can tell you almost per arrow where I found it and when. I will tell you quickly about some other aspects. We were going to show this to you, but I guess that's not going to work so well. Different kinds of shoulders and notches and so on. So that whole section of what I was going to tell you about is kind of gone with the wind. When you come up here, stop up here to this area, and I have set examples of different kinds of notches, different kinds of bases, different kinds of blades, that sort of thing. So you'll have a look-see at that. take notice of this. These are my 4 favorite pieces. I used to have them at the Capitol until I realized anybody who comes in to clean at night could walk in, walk away with it, and they were my 4 favorite pieces, so now I keep them at home. The black one on your left was the longest one I found, 4 3/4 inches. And the day I found it, it was a new field that had been plowed for the first time. And I picked it up and I sat down and I cried. Because I realized the last person to touch it probably made it. And it was by a creek bed. So you want to contemplate what it is you have. And I thought, did this miss a deer? Because it was just there. But the campsite was very nearby because, well, you can tell campsites when you come upon them. So I always wondered why it was there. Did he lose it? Could you lose something that spectacular and not try to find it? You know, how did it get there? Where has it been in its journey? The big white one I found the very same day across the road on the same farm field, and that one had been worked up and plowed many, many times. And then the round one I found in that same place, and I think that's kind of an ornamental piece. There's quartzite in the center hole. I often wonder if they didn't wear it. But because it's worked all around, you know it was purposefully made. And then the little one, it's as big as my small little fingernail, and that's my smallest one. So those are my 4 favorite pieces, and I'll just set them here for you to look at. So, could I have your help, sir? Could you have each person just take one to hold for a few minutes? We're going to talk about those. I thought maybe it would be helpful if you each got a piece of an arrow. I was saying I went to my mom's to dig out some pieces, and I pulled those examples out of the bins down in the basement so that you would have some idea of what you were looking at. However, considering we don't have the technology I was counting on, this is going to become a little more difficult. But I'll do what I can. As soon as you each get a piece, we'll talk about them.
And did your mother find most of hers in the same location, or is that always?
I would just say the Wisconsin River Valley.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you go up into the valleys in Iowa County, the farm fields, and find a spring, for example, and you might stumble across a few arrows there. Yeah. Arrowhead hunting, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know about you folks, but it's not as easily done as it used to be. A couple of reasons. One, people have posted their land. Farmers are renting out their land to other people who work the land. So they post it, and now they don't want you on there any longer. The machinery that they use in fields anymore is so big that it just pretty much breaks up what... I'm sure this fellow would not be in one piece today because they're using huge machinery on that field. And that was the first year that it was opened up, and up until then it had just been pasture. So you're not finding whole ones. And like I said, people just don't want you on their land anymore. There's a different kind of plowing also, rather than the old plow that used to go down, what, 9, 12 inches and turn it over. Now they're just sort of scratching the surface with, what do they call that kind of plowing, planting?
No-till.
No-till, yep, yeah. So it's not exposing, thank you, it's not exposing new dirt, so those opportunities are gone. Because it was the Wisconsin River Valley, we found a lot of our arrows in the sand blows, which are also gone. They, you know, with the erosion protection that is going on now, the sand blows aren't in existence like they used to be. I remember one Sunday afternoon we went hunting and we found a sand blow that hadn't been there before. It was just a new area that had been blown off, the sand blown off. And it was a pottery works, and it was about the size of maybe that room over there. Nothing but pottery. just wherever you stepped, it was pottery, but kind of small pieces. So we kind of lost track of where it was, and there weren't any big pieces, and we probably should have reported it to somebody, but I don't know. I'll tell you a little bit about Mom's collection. Like I said, 2,000 perfect ones. She has some of the gray ghosts that are this long. She's got quite a few of those. She and her sisters would vacation in Florida in the winter, and they would stop at Plains, Georgia, and go to church where Jimmy Carter preached. And he did adult Sunday school class on Sunday morning, so they would go to that. And she was talking to him one time and found out that he too was an arrow collector. So when she got home, she found a nice little arrow from our farm and sent it to him. And about a month later, she got back a package in the mail, handwritten by Jimmy Carter, with an arrow that he found on the peanut farm. I hope to get that one. Mom was adamant that her arrowhead collection stay together if possible and not go to the Historical Society, because she and I had been down there a number of times, and they have boxes full of them under tables, heaps. They do not need a single arrow more than they have. And she said, it would break my heart if that's where my collection ended up. Arena does not have an historical society yet. I'm hoping that they will someday. But in the meantime, I don't know what's going to become of this collection, because one of my brothers is deceased, and he was the arrow hunter with me, so two of us kids hunted arrows. I have another brother who has never found one in his life, despite the fact that he would toss them in front of his path in hopes he would stumble on it and go, oh, I found one, but he never did. And then my youngest brother bought my farm, our dad's farm, and the agreement was that he had the farm and we remaining kids had everything inside, which includes the arrow collection. So I have no idea what we're going to do with it. I know it's worth a small fortune, but only if you sell it, and none of us want to sell it. So what do you do? What are you going to do with yours? Grandkids. Grandkids? Split it up among them? Yeah. You've got two. Okay. Well, at least you have a plan. We don't have a plan. So because I'm not able to do what I was going to do, let's just start with, if you look at the piece that you have, can you identify what part of the arrow it probably was? How many of you ended up with a tip? Okay. How many of you ended up with a base? Okay. Anybody just get an edge? Okay. Oh, you took a fun thing. Yeah. There are fun things that we've found in the field that I have no idea what they are, but we'll get to that too, I hope. So the tips can be any number of things. Let me see if I can find a tip.
This one is.
Yeah, it looks so shiny.
Some of them are purely pointy triangles, which it's the most common kind of tip. And then there is another kind of tip that scoops in like this before it makes the triangle, the point. And some of them are kind of outward, and then there's just a little tiny tip at the end of it. They all have names, and I'm sorry I'm not able to talk about it because I just can't. So as far as the sides are concerned, some of them are parallel signs that then go into a tip. Some of them sort of curve around like a leaf that go into a tip. Things like, oh, my drill, for example. I mean, can you imagine making a thing like this? Yeah.
How do you attach that to the wood?
I don't think they did. I think this was a drill.
So like that jewelry, the thing was a
Homemade, yeah. There are a couple of other drills here that are a little more obvious. This one has a flat surface that fits your thumb so nicely. If I had to sit and drill a hole in a piece of leather, I'd want this one. Or this one. It's got a nice kind of knob to hold on to as you do this sort of thing. Now, pure conjecture, we think this was a drill. Do you think this was a drill?
Or a needle. I guess it'd have to have maybe a phone bottom.
We kind of guess at what they use these tools for. There are experts who seem to know what they use the tools for. This one is fascinating. It's practically see-through flat. It's got this tiny, perfect drill at the end of it. I'm assuming that's what it's for. Maybe it was like cute. Yes. This one has only one shoulder. Supposedly that was done on purpose so that it would spin in the air. I don't know if that's true because of the weight. Also, I've been told that it could have been used as a knife as well. Who knows? Do you have any idea?
Maybe that's so far and it broke out.
I don't think so. I don't know.
So basically, they were tools and they were heads to be used for an arrow, so they were kind of all lumped into
Some of them.
arrowheads.
Some of them. Yeah.
Okay.
The term arrowhead, as far as I am concerned, describes all of the stuff that we've collected.
Okay.
Well,
I have a question.
yeah.
Did they use a particular kind of rock?
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of it came from Prairie du Chien, the chill. They imported it.
What kind of rock is it?
It's chill.
How do you spell that?
CHILT.
C-H-I-O-T.
And there's flint, different kinds of flint and obsidian. We've got several obsidian. I found, I know I've got some. Here's quartz.
And what kind of a tool did they use to make them?
Everybody's got a different idea. They say they started with a rock and ended with it like a deer antler, flaking off the small edges. There are flint knappers today who can sit down and knock out a beautiful arrowhead, gorgeous arrowhead, and sell it for a big price, and they do. So that's why my collection is pure. We either found it or somebody I was with found it. I don't have, except for this guy. Take a look at him when you come up. I went to Indiana to visit, and somebody down there said, I found an arrow I want you to look at, and handed it to me, and I said, where did you get this? And he said, I found it. And I said, where did you find this? And he said, out in the field. And I said, I don't think so. So he kept insisting, but this is not an Indian arrowhead. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is some kind of bone or something. It's not even rock. But he thought he was going to fool me with it. But, you know, if you found it in the field, I should think you might think so. But he bought it in a store, so he was just playing with me. Back to the piece that you got. Your notches. What kind of notches do you have? There are several kinds, several different ways arrowheads can be notched. Some of them have a head and a shoulder and a notch that comes in from the side. And some of them are barbed, if you look, so that if it goes in, it's not coming back out because it's barbed. Anybody have a barbed one? Maybe not. Okay. I know, okay, here's one. Probably can't see this very well.
So Sondy, sorry to interrupt, I can project now if you want to hand me one, I can throw it on the.
All right.
And those are inches for scale, so you guys will know how big they are too.
Okay.
So I'll be your running person, I'll just run back and forth.
All right, so now we're back to, okay, we were just talking notches. Can you take this whole sheet?
I sure can. Yep, sure can. This whole thing here.
Okay, we're going to experiment. This, by the way, in the legislature, almost everything I do pertains to K-12 public education. This is one of the reasons why when they tell me that we don't need teachers out in the rural school districts because we can do online learning, I keep going, yeah, right. I've seen how that works. Where did he go? Did he run off with my arrows? Okay, can you find the one that says notches? You got blades and tangs. Whoa! Okay, notches. So, anybody side notch? Some of the notches come in right at the corner. So when you do come out and look at the arrowheads, be thinking about this. A basal notch, that's that white one I was just showing you. It runs straight across here, but then there's this little notch up here. Not many of you are going to have one of those because that's kind of rare. Diagonal, just kind of looks like a barb. Oh yeah, this one. This expanded. I'm on the wrong page. I'm too close. Here we are. Okay. So those of you who got bottoms, bases, straight is pretty common if you have a straight. Subconvex, it kind of curves down. Some of them kind of.
Sorry.
Some of them curve up in a subconcave. And there is the true convex, concave, triangular. Anybody get one of those? I couldn't find examples of either of these two. But those are the kinds of bases that you can find on your arrows. And it isn't unusual to have many, many combinations of these sorts of things. Different shorts, different shaped blades, different shaped canes, different shaped notches. Can we look at okay. All right, the tang shapes. Yeah. Straight stem, did anybody get one of these on their base piece? Nope. I had examples of everything in there. The contracting stem. Okay. That we call turkey tail, and it's kind of an unusual base. The point of all of this is that these were ways that the arrowhead was attached to a shaft. So you can imagine sinew going around that with the shaft sticking through here. Same thing here. But the point being that these different notches and shoulders had a different purpose. Okay. Anybody get one of these? Okay. Can we go back? Move over to, yep. The blade shapes. Did anybody get a whole blade? Did they know what shape their blade is? You did. What would you call yours?
The one right under triangular? Yeah.
Okay. Kind of a parallel. That's pretty common, actually, those great big things. In the collection, you will see some of these and some of these, a lot of these, a few of these that kind of look like a leaf. These tend to be the longer ones. So, yes.
I have one with a hole drilled in it.
Yeah, and I don't know that the hole was drilled or maybe just naturally occurring, but what I have read is that they would put poison in the hole, seal it over with beeswax, and then that would either kill or stun the animal that they hit.
Can you put this up there?
Yeah, well,
Here, Jesse.
Go ahead. So, does anybody want to ask questions about the piece they got?
I asked a different question.
Sure.
Did you ever find an arrowhead with remnants of the shaft?
No.
I mean, I realize they would have long since mostly rotted away.
Yeah.
But it could be in some wetter area.
Maybe a cave or something? Yeah.
You never did.
We never did. No. What we did one time was bought a leg bone of a human being with an arrowhead in it.
Whoa.
Where is that now?
Well, Mom was pretty uncomfortable about that whole idea. So we pried the arrow out. I can tell you which arrow it is. And we took the leg bone up under our great big pine trees on top of the hill and we buried it. And we had a little family ceremony with that. I have no idea who the poor soul was that had this. And it was like right here. Whack. And the arrow wasn't that big. It was only like this. It wasn't a spear of any kind. It was, I don't know, maybe he shot himself.
I doubt that.
Yes.
Did they ever find a lot of them right around Verona, do you know?
We didn't hunt in the Verona area.
Oh, they didn't,
Uh-uh.
oh, okay. Because I know,
These guys-
Everything over there
Those
came
over
from the
there.
Verona area, and they can tell you about
oh, because I always thought it was strange, because I remember as a kid, we always thought if we were digging, we would find some, but we never, ever found any around
them. How
Verona.
many of you ever found an arrowhead? No, you guys. Yeah. Where is it today?
My son has it, and I found it in my parents' garden.
Yeah.
I was feeding
Really?
the garden and I found it, and it was what I would say perfect.
Sure.
And it would be downtown Verona, actually,
Yeah.
right behind,
Oh.
just east of Main Street. And what was I gonna say about that? Well, anyway, that's.
Almost everybody tells me they had some when they were kids, and they were in a cigar box, and they don't know where they are.
Yeah.
That's mostly what I hear.
My son has it, that's all I know.
Yeah.
Or did.
My dad's collection's from when he picked rocks at my grandparents' farm, and my mom has them nicely mounted on a nice velvet-lined watch case to keep
Cool.
it nice.
Cool. Can I see other hands?
It's on the impression that you found a lot of these where you could, where the.
No. No, that's a very active Indian site, historical site, archaeological site. I didn't find them there. No, mostly like Bear Valley, Lone Rock, Spring Green, along the Wisconsin River, Arena, Sauk City. My dad and I were out last week. I took him out to lunch, and we came down Highway Y from Sauk to Arena. And we got to this one field, and I said, Daddy, I can't believe this, but every single time that we came past here this time of year with Mom, we stopped and we got out of the car and we went over there and we hunted that little rich. I don't know if I brought it with me. Here it is. One time she said, all right, you kids stay in the car. I'm just going to run out there because she didn't want, all the time consumed gathering up kids. So I opened my car door and I'm sitting there kind of dinking around by the road and found this guy. She came back empty-handed. Said, you missed this one. Sure. That's my Highway Y one.
I have a question about this one.
Yeah.
It has a pink cast to the stone.
Mhm.
What kind is?
I have no idea.
Oh,
Honestly, I always said I would hunt arrows while I was physically able, and when I got old and couldn't, then I'd figure out what I had. Then I went to the legislature, and now I don't have any time, so it will happen. I'm going to stick that one up there too. Thanks. Oh yeah, there it is. That little pink one I found on Highway Y. Over in Arena, along a creek, we have a family farmer. Yeah, isn't that weird?
Oh, it's like a puzzle piece.
It does. If you go down into Illinois, around Cairo, that area, you can find you could find tons of those things. Mom's got several drawers of nothing but little tiny, finely serrated, almost all of them white. We call them bird points. I don't know what else to call them. Is that what you call them? Bird points? Yeah. That one I found up here, but it's broken on all three sides. Just slightly broken. So I have no idea exactly what that thing was. Sometimes they made practice pieces. Maybe that was. I'm kind of assuming that the point of the arrow was here, and this was the top. I don't know, because the breaks on this are very small. I don't know, when you come by and see it, take a look at it. And that's the other thing, these things are not fun if you can't touch them. Mom glued hers in because she used to take them to schools, and she'd come home with empty holes. And she called it wasn't show and tell, it was show and steal. So she took to gluing hers in. Mine are loose, and so feel free to handle them. Be real careful with the drills. But feel how sharp the points are. I find that kind of amazing that that lasted. Back to the pieces. So I saw some other question over here. No? Okay. So the time of year to hunt for us used to be spring, right now. After the plowing, get a couple good rains to wash the dirt off. Make sure that the farmer knew you were coming. We bought a lot of cheese. We take a 3-pound block of cheese or salami, you know what kind I mean. And we'd go and make nice with the farmers, because we knew them. I mean, these were people we knew. Offer up our gift, ask permission to hunt. We asked every year. And don't step on any plant. Because as the corn is coming up, the last thing they want to know is that you're out there walking on their plants. So we were very, very careful about that. Sometimes the muddiest fields were the best. But we kind of figured out after a while that you're looking for a knoll, because, I mean, what campsite is going to be sitting down in the muck? It had to be near water of some kind, either a river or a fairly substantial creek. And you could just kind of tell by walking the field that this was going to be productive or not, because some of them just had tons of gravel and yuck in it that you were never going to find an arrow point because there was just too much stuff. Are you guys familiar with Middleton? Do you remember the old Frenchie's restaurant?
Yeah.
One of the best arrow sites around. Oh my Lord, that was gorgeous. That hill that now has houses on it just produced so many arrowheads. And then we took to looking a couple years ago when they started building up on the hill west of there. I said to my husband, you know, that's possible that it could be. So they had scraped away the dirt and made piles, and they were getting ready to dig the foundation, and it had rained. So we went up there, and we came home with about 9 arrows that day, just from a quick, like half-hour walk around the site. And then the next day they came with their big machinery, and it all went away. So that's the way it happens. Some of you asked about these things. I'm not positive what they are, but they're either a paint pot, or it's one of those things that they took the stick and sat and did this to get a fire started. I think. I don't know.
Could it be a medicine ball?
I was gonna say, for mortar and pestle, isn't it?
It could, but isn't that kind of overkill? I mean, I don't know. We've got one at home that's this big, and it's got 7, 9, 10 maybe holes like this. I don't know what it was for, but you know that they used it for something. And when you're walking in the arrow fields and you find something odd, like, what have you got there? Yeah, that thing. I don't know what it is, but it made me curious that maybe, yeah, it looks like a petrified cherry.
Well, I think they use it on nets to sink it in the river.
That's possible. I mean, there are so many possibilities that I'm not going to tell anybody they're wrong. Oh, and this guy, I got to show you that too. A couple pieces of pottery. That's good. This thing that he's putting up now, I found it when I was pretty young. Yeah, you can clear those other things away if you'd like. Distance learning. Okay, can you turn the guy on top to your right or left? Yep. The other way, some more. Yep. And again. There you go. What does that look like to you? So I found that in the field, and I thought, it's just a rock. And then I got to looking, and I thought, it's not just a rock. And maybe it is. And maybe it's just my imagination or my wishing it were so. But I can't imagine that it's impossible that they carried that around going, hey, I found Uncle Will. I don't know. You can't see the pottery very well. There again, that was a field we were walking in that had a lot of sand, and I found a small piece of pottery. And Mom and I sat down with our hands, and we dug out what was a whole bowl, but in pieces, here and there and here and there. And I brought today just the top edge of one of them. But here in Wisconsin, the pottery was mostly clay and then decorated with woven grasses or reeds on the outside to make a design. They weren't painted like the fine Western Anazazis. You and I were talking about that. Yeah, yeah. I have one of those too, but I didn't bring it with me because it isn't ours from Wisconsin. So I think, I have no idea what my time frame is here.
Oh, up to you.
Oh, okay. Well, you could be sorry you said that. So if you want to come up and just handle things, look at things, oh, bring your pieces back too. I mean, dump those up here. And then we could just talk about what's there and what you have found and what you're interested in, what you want to ask more questions about, because at this point, I think we've kind of covered the general. I'm no expert on this. I'm a collector. I'll become an expert when I'm old. I'm not old enough. Yeah.
Our Rotary Club goes to the Pope Farm every year,
Yeah.
and Mel tells us what's going on, and we do some painting and upkeeping of the grounds. And,
Thank you.
And did you find any of these arrowheads on the farm?
Not a single one.
No.
I went to church with Betty, and we might be distant relatives, but I'm not so sure of it. But I spent 23 years of my adult life right near there, like a mile further south. My husband and I owned Hometown Auto Clinic years ago. He died of pancreatic cancer the first time I ran for public office. He was diagnosed in July and died on primary day. He was a Republican, by the way, who said, "You'll be the first Democrat I vote for," but then he checked out on primary day and he didn't. I've always wondered if that was just a little stubborn part of him. So I have since remarried, which is why I'm no longer Pope Roberts, but just Pope. I went back to my maiden name. In here, you're going to see a couple of oddities. There are some what I call blunts. There isn't really a tip, it's just a rounded end. I have read, I don't know for sure, I don't think any of us know really for sure about any of this, that this was to stun the animal so that they could then tether it and keep it alive until they wanted fresh meat. I don't know. Kind of makes sense, but I don't know that it's true. It's a good story. Let's see. One of the most interesting ones in here will be right here, front center in this one. It's got a really, really interesting, odd shape. The worth of these things, it varies. If you look at the books, it'll knock your socks off. But I would hate to try and sell them today for that price. I mean, who's going to buy them? You know, you can put any price on them you want, but until you sell them, they're not worth anything. So, go ahead and come on up and we'll just talk and touch and...
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How big is the gap between when the plow comes through and then they seed it? Do they do it at the same time, or do you have a couple of weeks you can pick what you want without stepping on plants?
Well, in the old days, it was the plow, followed by the disc, followed by the drag, followed by the planter. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So between each one of those stirrings, if it rained, you had an opportunity. And you ran out there as soon as the dishes were done, before the sun set, and you hunted, which is why most of ours came from within a quick drive of our home farm. And we have found them on our home farm, but they're not, fine arrowheads. They're kind of the older ones. We have one Clovis point. Those are like 10 to 15,000 years old. And I think most of these are like woodland area, don't you, Era? Yeah. Which is old enough, now that I think about it. But I didn't bring that thing along because it's probably the most valuable one that we have, so it's still home.
Have you ever found any like dried blood on the actually
Nope. Nope.
Just the one
one inside the leg.
Yeah. That would have been, I wish kind of, we would have done at least a DNA to figure out whose leg it was. But it was human, yeah.
In the original Historical Society, right on campus.
Yeah.
They have that huge collection
Yep.
downstairs. And then for a while it disappeared. But it came back because the family that donated had specified it had to be on display. And it's huge. It covers
Yeah.
a whole room.
They don't let you specify those sorts of things anymore. We have a Brager family clock that's downtown that belongs out in Mount Horeb, and even though every ancestor that breathes signed a petition asking that it be moved, it's still sitting down there in a box on the floor, under a bench.
So they put this whole collection back.
Yeah. Have any of you been to Washington DC to the American Indian Museum? When you go, just be prepared to have your socks knocked off. There's a wall that is unbelievably intricate display of Indian arrowheads, and it looks like an ocean wave. And it's just arrowheads. It's just gorgeous. It's worth the trip just to see that alone. Okay, so feel free to come on up, ask your questions. We'll see if we, yes.
Could we hear about the Verona
Yes.
arrowheads from you guys? You guys brought them? and
Come on, Doris.
Maybe you could tell us,
Which one of you is
tell
the
us where
talker?
they're from and.
He knows more about it than
All right.
Well, my dad found a lot of them when we were cultivating corn the first time through. He goes a little slow,
Where was your farm?
west of Verona.
We're Barnes.
Barnes.
Talking to the mic a little
By
closer.
where? I didn't-
Yeah, where Barnes farm is now, that's where we found a lot of it. In the spring after rain, when we cultivate corn, is when we found a lot of them. And then, below Carnes, where there's houses along the river, we found a lot of them down there. There's houses there now, so. you
Want to
know.
go help them garden?
Yeah.
I'll vote for you.
And then you talk about where they're digging there on 69. If you go on a hill right northeast of there, there's quite a few found there.
Is that like Manhattan Boulevard?
It's just right, it's right on the hill on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
So,
Was it a family thing for you too? Did your whole family go and hunt, or?
no, this mostly cultivating corn, and we walk after rain, you know, see if we can find some.
How many kids? How many of you kids did this?
Just my dad and I.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to try to figure out what happens to them.
Yeah.
That's a dilemma.
I was gonna ask you if you found any other tools, like something like a hatchet or something,
I got-
something a little bigger.
Yeah, I couldn't find them all. We were building a new house, and I moved them into my shed. I got a lot of hatchets and tomahawks. I got some real clevis plates, you know, like that long, but I can't find them right now. They're all stored away.
I'll help you though.
We're down at Daniel Boone's birthplace, and he's got a little stone there where his cabin is. And a friend of ours' daughter collects stones, and I kicked over a little mud there. It was raining, and here was a half tomahawk there, and I brought it home.
Well, thank you very much, Sondy. We really appreciate you coming out and spending Saturday with us. Thank you so much.